Noir generally is hard-boiled, but how is it different than hard-boiled, for example?
I've never distinguished the two before, I guess. That would be something
there is.
interesting
I mean,
to think
noir
about.
is actually, you know, the French word for black, and it really, if you think about James M. Cain, the kind of classic noir novelist and all, noir really implies a kind of downward spiral. Very few noir novels, if any, have a happy ending.
Have you read Snitch Jacket?
I have, or Patrick has.
Wonderful book.
Yeah.
Very noir, but not hard-boiled.
Okay.
So I see the distinction
Right.
when I think about that book.
See, I would call Lee Child hard-boiled, but definitely not noir.
I agree.
You know, because, I mean, when Jack rides out of town, he's not splattered on the pavement, you know, with a gunfighter standing over him. He's
True.
back on the bus.
But he does some horrible things himself.
But that doesn't, the point of noir to me is simply that you know that no matter how hopeful it looks for the characters, the book is going to end wrenchingly.
Badly. Yeah,
badly for them.
badly.
Whereas hard-boiled simply implies, you know, to me, there's
Bad things will happen.
a lot of violence,
Yeah.
you know, those kinds of things. And again, it's the sort of debate between what's a cozy and what's a traditional mystery. You know, the British call cozy what I call traditional. I mean, to me, P.D. James is not a cozy novelist, never will be.
No, but she is traditional.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a distinction.
So I do think that the danger of all these labels is that, you know, that people may sometimes either be misled or may shun some book that they might actually like because it's got some label on it that doesn't particularly appeal to them.
I know that's true. I know that some readers are put off by the labeling on products. It really stops quite a segment from reading things that I really think they would enjoy.
Well, as a librarian myself, I can tell you that all categories are not only inclusive, but exclusionary. And there, I think, lies this huge danger when you stick on labels. But maybe the Southern Vampire for Suki simply means that they all take place in the South. I mean, maybe it wasn't intended.
Mostly, yeah. I'm not sure what the thinking on that was, and I'm not sure I agreed with it, but that's what we've got.
Well, you went to Dallas, and you've been in Louisiana, and in fact, in From Dead to Worse, you're still in the Katrina. You can't really write about Louisiana and ignore Katrina, can you?
You can't, but I have gotten accused twice of profiting
You're kidding.
by the miseries of Katrina, and truthfully, I find that very hurtful and distressing because that was never, of course, my intention, and I hardly see how I could have written about Louisiana and pretended Katrina didn't happen. That would be far more insulting.
Well, that'd be like writing a New York novel ignoring 9/11.
I know, I agree. And I can't understand the...
Or Sarah Paretsky, when she wrote the Tunnel book after the Chicago flood. You know,
Yeah.
that, I mean, anybody knew that Sarah's next book was going to have to mention the horrible disaster of the flood in the tunnel in Chicago.
Yeah, I really don't get that, and it really distressed me until I decided I just had to dismiss that and go on.
Well, I got myself sidetracked because one of the things I did want to ask you about before we move on, the Lily Bard books were actually Shakespeare, or Shakespeare was part of the title. What was Shakespeare referring to?
Well, of course, the town was called Shakespeare. Originally, I had a different idea behind that, but I decided to show how random her life had become, that she settled in Shakespeare simply because her last name was Bard.
Aha. Very
She
nice.
just wanted to, she didn't care where she was. She just had to settle somewhere where no one knew her, and that's how she picked Shakespeare.
Which is a small town in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, right?
By now you're living in Arkansas.
Yeah.
There's so little mystery set in Arkansas.
Maybe it's not a very mysterious state. well, of course, there are Jones books.
Right?
And there was a lawyer, and he's a very fine writer. He set quite a few books in Arkansas. He lives in Little Rock, and unfortunately right now my brain is not...
I can't remember. I was thinking about Daniel Woodrell. He's written a couple really good books about Arkansas. Scary books, in fact, about Arkansas. The Death of Sweet Mister was just like hair-raising.
Ooh.
And Jim Salas has written 3 books, but I think he's done. I think it was a trilogy, in which it's right on the Memphis border.
Oh yeah, that's where I grew up, is in Mississippi, right south of Memphis.
Right. You know, I can't think of who this art. I know who
It'll
you're talking
pop
about.
into the top
Right.
of my head.
But
He's just a Griff Stockley.
that's it.
Griff Stockley, and he is the nicest guy, and his books are very good. But he doesn't write fiction anymore.
Yeah. I just wonder, you know, some places are so heavy with authors wanting to
I
portray
know.
them as landscape. New Mexico. Everybody wants to write a mystery set in New
That's
Mexico.
right.
Or
Yeah.
Seattle is huge at the moment. You've always got California and, you know, San Francisco and LA, Los Angeles, New York, whatever. Even North Carolina. We publish a couple of series set in North Carolina, but Arkansas, for some reason, just hasn't attracted a lot of attention.
Oh, there's Radine Trees Naring. She writes mysteries set in Arkansas.
What about Toni Kellner? Where are hers?
Tony's books are set in the north, but they're about someone who moved there from South Carolina.
Okay, I noticed that you made a note to her in your books.
Yeah, Tony is the greatest. She's so smart. She and I have co-edited a book already, the Many Bloody Returns, and we've also co-edited another anthology that's going to be out in October called Wolfsbane and Mistletoe, and we just have the best time. I mean, if you can edit a book with somebody and still be their good friend, then you're really doing something.
Well, all right, so we've been to Mississippi with Sweet and Deadly. We have been in Atlanta, or suburban Atlanta, messing around with Roe. And we've been in Arkansas with Lily Bard in the Shakespeare Mysteries. And Harper Connolly, before we get back to Suki, where are the Harper Connolly books taking place?
They go all over the place.
They do.
I thought I was being so smart, starting a traveling series.
Right.
And it is sort of fun to pick a different location every time for the books. Sometimes they're in a city, sometimes they're in a small town. But what I hadn't quite realized is that there's no supporting cast of characters. So Harper and her brother have to carry the book every time, and I have to invent everybody else, which is not as easy as I thought it would be, to come up with a completely new cast of characters every time.
What's the slant of the Harper Connolly books? What is it you're trying to do with those? Oh, you are doing. Sorry,
Well,
trying to do implies you're not getting it done. I didn't mean that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. They're still a work in progress. I think, they have a high ick factor.
Ick?
Yeah, a high ick factor, because Harper and Tolliver are not really siblings, but they did grow up together. So that makes a lot of people really queasy,
Why?
because they think of it as an incestuous relationship.
Oh, okay.
So see, it didn't ick you out, did it?
No, well, I mean, you've done a lot more ick and other stuff. That seemed pretty mild to
I
me.
have no problem with ick myself.
No.
But I'm not really sure what I'm doing with these books, except I really had to do it.
And you started those after the Suki Stackhouse books had
I
sort of
did.
taken off.
I did. I had to do something to cleanse my palate before I went back and wrote another Suki, and I thought I need somebody really different, and Harper is very different.
And what does she do? What's her particular profile?
Well, she had a really bad upbringing. Most of my protagonists have had a really pretty good, stable upbringing in a way, but Harper's was abysmal. Her mother fell from being a lawyer to being a drug addict, and married another drug addict who was Tolliver's father. And then they descended from living in a really nice house to living in a trailer with a broken floor in Texarkana.
Real trailer trash kind of thing.
Real
huh?
trailer trash, and the siblings from the two families are trying desperately to take care of the two little ones from the marriage. And in the midst of all this, she gets struck by lightning.
That's it. And what does that, when she survives it, what powers does that give her?
It gives her the power to find dead people and to know how they died, which is it's harrowing.
I guess.
But she doesn't know how to do anything else, so that becomes her way of making a living.